Welcome back to the initiative.
Episode 2. Sorry.
I'm Adam.
I'm Lindsay.
This is episode 2. We're back at it.
Yep. Still really getting our sea legs with this, but I think after having done one, we really have the energy to keep going.
Yeah, and it's we haven't even uploaded our first podcast yet.
It feels better to have kind of a cushion of one episode already on there.
Yeah, I agree, and we're still working on the logo. I think some of the sites require logos. We got to get a logo.
Yeah.
It's got to be that visual pop that you want to see. Oh yeah, that's the initiative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just like branding and marketing in general, we want to have that basically set up before we get started. It's going to change over time, hopefully, because we still don't really know what our brand identity is right now. But I think it's going to be cool, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. Yes. So let's get into it. We're gonna kind of just do a little game, little topic, little Q&A type thing.
Icebreaker. Get to know each other.
So what did we want to talk about? Kind of top 3 sci-fi influences, media, video games, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like top 3 sci-fi stories. But through the lens of what really stuck with you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you've seen a million times, but maybe just a world or an idea that you always come back to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot, and you go first. What's kind of that first thing that you're growing up, a book or movie or
I
game
think
that
when
you played that really stuck with you?
When you start getting into sci-fi, it does, the first things stick with you the longest, I think, even if they are kind of generic, because you don't have the perspective of other things that you've seen that you can refer to. I think because it's so weird, and it's unusual, and your brain isn't used to processing it, so it kind of imprints itself in your mind. And I got into sci-fi really late. I think there were a lot of things that I didn't even know existed until high school. And then I didn't experience the like sci-fi canon until college. So I didn't have a mushy little baby brain. I had a fully formed worldview. So the sci-fi that I saw was already kind of grown up.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have like went back and watched an 80s movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do that all the time. And like when I was in school, I took classes where we would look at like the first sci-fi and all that stuff. But
so what stuck with you?
I think if I have to choose for the first one, I would say the book A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, and we just watched the movie for this. So a lot of my memory, because I haven't reread it in years, and I read all of her books, but
the book was better, right?
Oh,
the movie was so confusing.
I think it's not even that it was confusing; it was just plain bad.
Yeah, wasn't put together well.
Yeah, and I mean, I could go on forever about bad book adaptations and good book adaptations. I think a lot of sci-fi stories do better on the screen than they do in the books, or they do differently.
So, what was it about the book?
Well, I read it when I was really young, like when I wasn't allowed to read that kind of story because I was kind of sheltered in terms of I had to read things that were very realistic as seen through the religious filter. But it was very strange because it's really metaphysical. It's like you have to mentally tesser, which is to travel between dimensions and time. And I had read nothing like that. Like I read a lot of fantasy and a lot of like historical fiction and stuff like that, but I had never even thought about the concept of interdimensional travel and different planets. So I think the thing that stuck with me the most with
that blow your mind.
It kind of put me in. I think when you're younger and you're reading, you're a lot more impressionable to getting immersed in that world, and being immersed in a world that was so alien to me was a little bit. It kind of put me in a bit of a fog because it screwed with my perception so much. But the thing that I think that most fascinated me was when they went on planets that were different from Earth in the way that you just experience your senses. So like I think there's one planet where all of the residents on the planet are blind, but they can like taste color or something like that. I tried to look this up beforehand because it stuck with me, but I still don't remember the details. And there was another planet where the only living creatures on the planet were these like coral tendrils, and they were part of like this hive mind. And it was from the perspective of one of these tentacles, and they were like super old, like Ents, where they perceive time much slower than everybody else. And I'm kind of curious to see if this is actually how it went, or if this is just how my childhood brain interpreted it, and that's how I remembered it forever.
But it stuck with you.
Yeah, it stuck with me, and it like activated my imagination, and it made me want to read more of those kinds of stories.
So what color did that, or what sound, that taste that you
like
interpreted?
this synesthesia aspect of it. I interpreted it in my brain as like this. When I thought of colorless, I thought of like skin color, like white people's skin color, of course, but like the color of like silly putty, and just kind of like blobs moving around and tasting other blobs or something. That's the image that I have stuck in my head of these like tall, humanoid, lumpy, flesh-colored things with no eyes, looking at things with their tongues. And I have no idea if that's actually in the book, but
that's some
yeah,
imagery, new imagery.
And it wasn't even just that it was something that the character was looking at. It was something that the character was experiencing, because her perceptions were also different on this planet.
Right.
So it was, I really got to go back and reread it because now I'm just itching to. But I want to get the taste of that movie out of my mouth first because that was so bad.
Yeah.
Don't see it if you haven't already. It's not even worth it if you're a kid.
Yeah. Well, my first influence that I think really got me into like the sci-fi, kind of all that fun stuff. I think it's got to... I was thinking The Matrix, the movie, but that was like more when I was in middle school. But, you know, thinking back further when I was in like elementary school, that time frame, I think it was definitely Back to the Future. Back to the Future was...
Of course it's Back to the Future.
Sorry, I watch it like once a year.
We should have flipped this where I answer for you, because I think I would be a lot better at answering for you than for myself.
Probably. Anyway, so Back to the Future. I think especially the second movie when they go into the future to 2015.
That's the one with the flying skateboards, right?
Flying skateboards, flying cars. Everything's flying. Even the back brace that the dad had, he was upside down and it was flying, and there was the dock walkers that were floating, and you didn't have to walk your dog, just a robot.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah.
The year that it was mid
1980s, like
yeah.
mind blowing.
Yep.
But you know, I'm growing up in the 90s watching it. I still find it coolest stuff, and it's still good.
Well, it's a lot of practical effects, isn't it?
Practical effects?
Like it's not computer generated. They did it with like lifts and perspective and puppets
exactly. They all film effects, like the hoverboard. It was on like I don't remember
like on a track.
I don't think it was on a track. It was like on a lift or something, and then they kind of wrapped it around.
See, now if they made that now, they would literally just green screen it.
Yeah,
I hate to be the person that's like all anti green screen, but you can tell. When they make it good enough where you can't tell, then I won't care, but you can tell, and it takes you out of the experience. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So so when I first watched Back to the Future, time travel, that's a cool concept.
Oh,
it first introduces you in the time travel. Okay, so if you go back into the past and you make a change, it creates an alternate dimension.
Right.
And then, you know, a new timeline. So like this is all like
mind blowing.
Yeah, it definitely introduced me into this. And you didn't even have to understand, but it definitely introduced me in that time travel aspect with, and so many sci-fi movies and shows interpret time travel, and time travel itself, that's a whole different topic. But so yeah, I think Back to the Future is kind of what got me into sci-fi, and I just rewatched that movie at my grandma's place every time I went over there. So it was back in the VHS.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
So well, what's another sci-fi thing that kind of influenced you, maybe further down?
Yeah, I think I can go a little bit later. I think I'm going to venture into high school, and that would be The Minority Report.
Ooh, yeah, that's still influencing.
I've still only seen it nowadays. Twice, and honestly, I watched it in the most 90% of the movies that I watched for the first time in high school, like Jurassic Park and The Ring and Field of Dreams and all that like classic stuff, I watched in pieces because I either watched it for 20 minutes at a time during our lunch break or broken up into 30-minute sections watching a movie in class. Like I never had that experience of like sitting down and watching those movies all the way through. So they're really patchy in my memory. But the thing that stuck with me the most about Minority Report was the effect of being able to throw your computer screen up in the air and touch it and manipulate it. And so many movies do that. Like it's the Minority Report thing. They were the first one to do that. But if you look at Iron Man, especially Iron Man 3 did it a lot, like when he was zooming in and out of that camera view of the soldiers.
I think even in the earlier Iron Mans too, where he's
I think it started there, of course.
Yeah, he was pulling things out of the screen and putting shit in. And, but yeah, Minority Report set that precedence of manipulating the screen, the computer, the digital aspects, human interface to the digital world. That stuck with me too. Like it, Minority Report, things. Everyone knows what you're talking about. Yes, it's that screen. Boom, moving hands.
So many other things in that movie, like screen. The idea of advertisements reading your eyeballs. Wasn't that in Minority Report?
So advertising playing based on your identity, and there's like a bunch of identity scanners that scan your eyeballs. It's like, oh hey, welcome.
And the idea of having autonomous vehicles, but they were like hover cars and they were on like a highway zooming in and out. Whenever I imagine futuristic highways, I think of Minority Report.
That's right, because Minority Report had automated vehicles, autonomous vehicles, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
And now we got Teslas and other cars that are starting to do Google and all these other companies doing automated cars now. I didn't even think about that until now. So we're really getting to that point.
Yeah, and we're getting to the point. I think the thing that we're missing that would define us as futuristic is if we had more autonomous friendly infrastructure. Like a lot of sci-fi that you see, particularly action movies, when they show autonomous vehicles, there's like a super slick, super fast highway that's built out of just pure metal, and people are driving on that. Or Minority Report, where there's like an intricate web of kind of holographic freeways that were mid-air. I think they even did that in Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, yeah, they had posts and then like interpretive highways. I don't know, but yeah, they definitely had the hollow, the Google Glass type thing in Back to the Future, where Doc Brown put these metallic visor over his eyes, and I'm sure he was getting some digital feed there, but I don't think they really showed that. It was kind of your interpretation of it. But like again, 80s crazy, crazy
versus Minority Report, which was like what, 2004 something.
It was somewhere around there. I think it was earlier than that.
And the other thing, I think this is just because it was the first sci-fi movie that I really saw, but the other thing that really stuck with me was how much sci-fi is a social narrative, in that movie was asking the question of, can you trust AI to dole out justice when something hasn't happened yet.
They weren't AI, they were precogs.
Well, yeah, but the system was designed by AI, wasn't it?
I think they were based around the precogs. I think maybe the AI linked the minds together. There was some...
Yeah, there was some sort of like translation algorithm or something that was happening.
But no, I had no artificial intelligence.
Interesting.
They didn't
Why
really
did I
show
think
any of that.
Well, even then, it was the idea of free will that I think came up a lot. It was like,
right,
if you have you have predictive knowledge of a crime that you would commit, or of somebody being able to commit that crime, how much of it is predetermined?
I'm going to jail because I was maybe going to commit the crime.
Right.
Yeah, that's that. I don't know if that could ever work, but
no. Well, and I think the practical futuristic elements in that movie are more interesting to me than the fantasy elements of like the precogs and the how they, that like intricate scene where the precog code was like printed out on a pool ball that like went through a Rube Goldberg track before it engraved itself, like you were
the wood
paying
grain
$1 for it out of a Walmart vending
unique.
machine.
You couldn't copy that or hack it. I don't know what kind of BS they were peddling, but yeah,
I think that was one of those things that was like cooler in the book. I never read the book, but it did not translate.
It was
well
a plot
screen.
device, really.
Yeah.
It's a cool interpretation on that, but
it was one of those sci-fis where it's like some sci-fi, and I think we've talked about this before too, especially when talking about writing sci-fi. Some sci-fi is really, really dedicated to the sci part of sci-fi, and some sci-fi is full of plot devices because it's like, I just want to get to this solution, so I'm going to make up something that may or may not make sense. But as long as you've got the readers or viewers or players suspending their disbelief, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then there's that sci-fi where it's more accurate than real life because it's just so deeply researched.
Yeah, some of it's cool to see that. And leading into one of my influences,
this is
was
your
more,
third one?
I think it's second.
Back to the Future.
Star Trek.
Oh.
Okay. So yeah, it's more. I didn't get started in Star Trek until later in life, which I don't know why I was avoiding it, trying to.
What do you define as later?
College? Just later.
Really?
Again, Back to the Future. A lot of sci-fi stuff, Star Wars.
Why did I think that you had seen Star Wars as a kid when it was airing?
You mean in the 80s, before I was born?
No. Next Generation aired in the 90s, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. I could have watched I could have watched Star Trek in the 90s, but my parents, because my grandma, my mom's mom, watched sci-fi. My mom didn't watch sci-fi because that was uncool for her, so we never watched that stuff when I was a kid. But later in life, I got into Star Trek, Next Generation, the original series. It's hard to watch.
Picard.
But yeah, the Jean-Luc Picard, he was great. Great actor. Great, a set of great actors. But just the sci-fi and the research and the progressiveness and, just so much aspects of it. The discovering of artificial intelligence, harnessing, data. He was, just a robot, but then he was an artificial intelligence, and the crew wanted to harness that, and
then he was trying to seek humanity
always.
There are a lot of data storylines in the first couple of seasons.
Yeah, the Next Gen had 7 seasons, so there's just so much to it. They have the holodeck, so you're in a hologram. We're getting into VR more now. We're starting to get into interactions with digital objects,
right,
with the Microsoft HoloLens now.
Do you think that VR world will ever get as accurate as the holodeck?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we're progressing so far into it. I mean, the holodeck is really unique because of it's basically giant projector, but instead of light, it's actual physical elements that you can touch.
Yeah.
Because, there's a mountain. You touch that mountain, it feels like a mountain. It's not your brain interpreting the mountain. It's a machine generating a mountain.
Which in the show brings up a lot of uncomfortable feelings in terms of playing God with characters that you create out of thin air and then basically kill when you shut off the program. Like, didn't one of the characters fall in love with somebody in the holodeck? I can't remember who that was.
I think so. But Moriarty, they made Moriarty way too smart, and he became his own artificial intelligence within the system.
Oh, yeah.
From the Sherlock series. And then, they didn't turn him off. He was designed to be evil, but then he progressed, and then he was just a very smart person, and then they kept him alive and running a simulation in the background.
I don't remember that. I don't think I got that far.
Maybe not. But yeah, all these topics they discussed, that is just definitely opened my eyes to how cool a ship is, a captain, a crew, the different roles they play, just the whole ship culture. It's just so cool. Where humanity ideally should be. They're just future thinking left and right, and you're like, oh my god, whoa, So
they looked at so many different genres and aspects of history and interpreted them through the idea of what if this was in space in the future.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far down the Star Trek rabbit hole.
We could do 6 episodes on one.
Gonna hit some faux pas real quick. Misquoting and stuff.
That's a minefield that we are just gleefully ignoring.
All right, let's move on to the next thing.
I think I have one more.
Did we want to do 3? We can.
How are we doing on time?
We're doing we're well in the 20 minutes points. Let's just move on to next topic.
It was going to be really good.
Go ahead, go for it.
I don't actually remember what it was. Hang on.
Moving on, I kind of wanted to talk. In the first episode of our podcast, kind of Star Citizen and No Man's Sky. That was our influence for starting that. So I kind of wanted to talk about like the careers that you can have within the game, but more specifically, like just in sci-fi in general.
Yeah.
Like what would you want to be if you had a career, you had a ship, you had a crew, you had a dream? What would that dream be? You said you wanted to be a farmer on some planet.
Yeah, but honestly, I never really thought about that until I saw it as an option in this game. Like, that was never my...
Really?
Yeah, I didn't really think of it. Even though it is a little bit of the storyline in No Man's Sky, I didn't really think that there were so many possibilities. But I really like that idea. I also like the idea of being... kind of an independent agent going from battle to battle or city to city carrying information. Or
you're like an independent contractor. You are your own captain, very much like Firefly. So Captain Mal, he was his own captain at his own
emotional
crew.
Baggage.
Well, yeah, all that stuff. But like, it's your ship. You own the ship. You make your own choices. You do your own careers, and that's very much the mindset of Star Citizen. Is all the players in the game are independent contractors going out and doing their thing.
If you're not independent, that is a deeply intricate thing that you have to figure out. You can't just be like, oh, I'm in this group now. Like, it's more intense than that.
I mean, you could do that. You could just be like, oh, I'm part of this guild, but I'm just going to be a tow truck driver. You could do that.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no limits into that.
You can choose like to have a simple life.
Yeah, you could just be a drone. Some people like that activity of just going out, doing a thing, and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But you're supporting a larger cause, maybe
Yeah.
for your it's called the company, the guild, the clan, whatever.
It's a guild.
That's a guild.
They might call it something else, but it's a guild.
Yeah, I think it's called a company or a corporation.
I thought it was a clan, but I could be remembering it wrong.
I think you're remembering wrong. That's okay.
But it really gives you a chance to not do the like you're the general in this really important battle and it's your responsibility. Like single player games are often run into that, but the hardest part for me in multiplayer is having other people depend on me. So I like the idea of being a little bit more in the shadows.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool to have games out there that can allow you to do what you want to do. And I think No Man's Sky is meant for the individual, and there's other games out there that are very multiplayer aspect. There's a lot of games like Fallout with 76, which are trying to focus more on the group gameplay. You create your own gameplay, and without the group, why don't you have a group? Get in a group, damn it.
You have no friends.
You have no friends. You're not going to have any fun. It's basically the message they give there. But
see, that's why I'm hoping for AI. I don't want to play with real people.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to have AI. You can have a completely AI crew, and you can tell them to do stuff, or you can have.
And we're talking AI, not like mindless NPC. This is an intelligent NPC.
Yeah, I don't know how far they're getting into they don't even have an AI in the game
it's
yet.
on the roadmap. Maybe for 3.6.
Nerd. No. I mean that's the future plan. They're still early stage. It's still alpha, right? But I mean, we have the ship called the Endeavor, and you can create these science pods, and you can create your own farms, and
and you can define what that means. Like, are you going to go the main track? Are you going to try to do something more obscure? I'm sure it's a risk versus reward type thing where it's balanced, as long as it's always rewarding. I feel like some games they say, oh, you can be whatever you want, but it's only rewarding to be the default fighter character.
Yeah, and I hope they don't like make you start out as have a fighter ship. I mean, if you want to do like more, if you just want to be a transport cargo, then you could just do that. And right. So far, that's kind of what you can do. You can do fighter missions or cargo missions, and eventually, I want to see like science missions. You can go out and go research things or discover chart new paths. That would be great. They have so many ships like that. For me, I just got a ship called the Reliant Sen, which is a ship, a science it's a somewhat starter ship, and it's a science ship. It's got its own little laboratory, and it's just a 2-person ship you have 2 beds, a bunk bed, top and a bottom. You have a little bit of storage. You have a science center, a mobile science center. It's a smaller ship, so it's meant for short, medium distance travel, whatever that means in the game. Right. It's not meant for long trips necessarily.
I see in the image that it's got wings. Is it meant to fly well near the atmosphere?
So it has wings, yes. So when it's in its fly mode, or actually this is its landing mode.
It looks kind of like a bumblebee.
So yeah, when it's like flat out like with wings, that's its landing mode. Otherwise, when it's upright, it's like, it's vertical.
Yeah.
The wings are vertical.
Not as
and
much
that,
surface
and it
area.
kind of creates that cool design aspect of the game. And but yeah, not aerodynamic, I guess.
Right.
And it's going to be cool to have that. Like some ships, they're going to be a brick in atmosphere, and you don't want to fly them very much. It's going to require more fuel to just keep them in air versus a fighter ship that looks more like a fighter jet but flies very well in atmosphere and space.
I mean, we were looking at that last week with that video that you were watching, the different kinds of large cargo holders. I think we were looking at the Class C or something, but the idea of having either cargo arms that kind of hold on to multiple shipping containers outside of the circumference of the ship, and then fold in when they're empty, like little naked bat wings, or the idea of just having a homogeneous ship that can hold cargo inside, but it can hold less cargo, but it also can land in the ports easier. So that's even as complicated as the variation between the ships creates completely different gameplay.
Yeah. That one ship that has the bat wings that looks like a skeleton, and then you just load it with a crap ton of cargo containers, shipping containers. You could fit a lot of shipping containers, but it's, more susceptible to pirating.
Yeah.
Or, it's less maneuverable, and because it's so awkward shaped, because your shipping containers are going up, down, left, and right, that you wouldn't be able to land on a planet because of that. So you can only go to orbiting stations around a planet and then sell it to there, which may not be as profitable as maybe selling it directly to the planet or the source. So that was the whole C, I think, that we were looking at. And then what it was comparing that with is like the merchantman ship, which is, giant winged ship that can't fit as much cargo, but it can land on a planet using its VTOL thrusters more efficiently. Vertical takeoff and landing. I think that's what it stands for, VTOL. So that it's cool how they have that dynamic in that game. And I want all the ships in the game.
Well, I mean, it's similar to a lot of RPGs where you definitely have to choose which direction you're going to go in. You can't really do everything.
Yeah, some games I feel like the ships or the vehicles or the abilities you have, they all get you into the same places and the same spots, and
that is so true.
Do the same things, and there's not as much variety in the games as what it looks like from the outside. So having ships that drastically do very different things with different capabilities is very exciting to think about. It's like, oh, well, you can't fly this in atmosphere. Well, how do I get to the surface? Do you have a ship that can go into the atmosphere? No. Well, then you have to hire someone to go down there.
Yeah.
Or maybe you should invest in a smaller ship that can go to the planet easier.
It's realism to the point of every characteristic of something impacts what you can and can't do. There isn't a lot of like, oh, well, it's just, it doesn't look like it's landing, but it's landing. And then the screen goes black and then you're on the thing. Like there's none of that. They got so granular with how things function together.
Yeah. And, I have a ship called the Freelancer, which is supposed to be a more balanced ship. It's got good defenses. It's got good cargo abilities. It can land on planets. It's a medium-sized ship.
So it's more well-rounded.
It's a lot more well-rounded. But again, you may not make as much money, or in a battle, you may not fare as well. It's very average. So you're not... So like the whole it can load up more shipping containers. You're going to make a lot more money that way because you can bulk up that way. And the ship's also much cheaper. So like you can start making much more money much quicker.
Is money the only measure of progress?
Uh yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. I mean,
Can you develop skills?
I don't think it's gonna have like an RPG element where you get more skills and you progress. I think it's
Actual skills.
yeah, actual skills.
It's like you are getting better at this game, so you are being rewarded more.
Right. So it's not necessarily money, but it's like land. You can own land, and you know it can be a point of uh, 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 a place for people to go and spend money and buy your things. You know, you can hire AI staff to manage your outpost or something. Or I think it's a mixture of investing in things, and I think there's going to be a point where you can do a lot of things on your own, but maybe it makes sense to be part of an organization in the game.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily actively talk with them or do things with them, but
oh no, I want to be a number.
But you could trade with them, or you know they could trade with you. They could buy your stuff or something like that.
I like the idea of, in my farming career, setting up like a farm stand, or even like a grocery store type thing. Not grocery store, but like a supply store where people can come in and buy things.
Yeah, and it could be NPCs or it could be real people, and maybe having that organization, you know, they're going to be friendly, and they're not going to try and steal stuff from you because
right. Oh, they better not.
Well, there's pirating in the game.
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
going to have people trying to steal stuff.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to,
even if you don't want to fight, you're going to end up having to
even the
defend
NPCs
yourself.
are going to have that ability to pirate and steal from you. So it wouldn't be any different.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try, you know, it'd be cool to just have them blend NPCs and real players together where you can't really tell the difference. That's
would be
going
a
to be an
miracle.
interesting concept. Like even in the game currently, you can't see like
gamer tags
on there. So I'm like, is that an NPC or a real person? I mean, you can tell.
So you can't tell someone's going to be mad at you until they're already shooting at you.
Well, if they're shooting at you, you know what kind of ship they're are flying around, but you don't know who they are. You don't know who. So you'll see in chat like, who's shooting at me? Why are you shooting at me? And I was like, I don't know. So you play dumb, or you can own up to it, or you can,
Is it possible to protect yourself with only just having really good shielding? Or turrets or something?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to just talk about the defense aspect of it, there's going to be shielding. So if you want good shields, you need a good shield generator. But if shields go down, they need to regenerate. So you need a good power plant to, you know, electrify, create shields and regenerate it quicker. But if your shields go out, what do you have left? You got your hull. You have the metal, the alloys, and the actual structure of it. Is your ship segmented off? So if a hallway gets destroyed, will it suck everything out of the ship, or do you have airlocks that control that aspect?
Very, very Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. And I know they have that components. They have airlocks. They have different control points. You can, from your cockpit, you can control which doors opens and closes.
No way, really?
At this current state, yeah, they have that.
They have that now?
Yeah, so like I can say, oh, open the ship, or lock the doors, or whatever, and you can let people in. You're not going to want to go to the front door and open it. You want a button to open the door and let people in. These ships are massive. They're going to only get more massive. But yeah, there's the barrier aspect, and then you can have automated turrets that are controlled by the AI, and they're going to introduce stuff where you could have all your turrets be artificially controlled by the computer, but then you lose like radar computer processing. You only get so many.
It's a balance.
Yeah, so there's a balance with
defenses.
That's also
very Star Trek.
Or
all power to shields.
So an artificial intelligence controlling the turrets would be cheaper than, or you can hire a crew to man the turrets, and then you can use that computer space for other stuff. And
So you can really customize your approach to defense.
Yeah, and then you could completely customize your ship where you have no turrets whatsoever, and it's all science money making points on your ship. Two, maybe you just want to. Maybe you have a really powerful drive so you can escape the situation quicker, but you just want to do some mining, or you want to just do some trading. You want to get in and out as quick as possible. You don't want to be fighting.
Is there cloaking?
Is there cloaking? Right now, it's kind of like cloaking, like Mass Effect,
your
where
signature from
you're removing your heat signature, your electromagnetic signature. So you want to reduce that as much as possible. I don't think they're gonna have the invisibility aspect. They might introduce that. I don't know. It's the year 2950. You'd think they'd advance pretty far on that, especially when humans are a warfaring species for a few hundred years. So that would be cool. We'll see how far they go in the cloaking aspect, but I'm sure they want to have some semblance of balance in the game.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have stealth, you're like, you don't have shields on or whatever, so you're like complete.
That would be interesting.
You're
invisible, but you're naked.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they could do some cool balancing on that. So there's the defense, and then you could have a computer or a ship that has a giant computer, and then maybe the thing that you transport is data. Data is power, or knowledge is power. Having more data storage. Maybe you're trying to map a star system. Star systems require a lot of space.
Or you're like a communication processor.
Like
what's his name? Mr. Something from Firefly. Remember that planet that was all like television?
Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, Mr.
Serenity. It was in Serenity.
Yeah, the Serenity. Wasn't he? I think he might. Was he in the show? I don't know. Whatever. So yeah, Mr. Universe or whatever his name was.
Yeah, the guy from Santa Claus. Sorry.
Good reference. Don't remember that. But yeah, like that. Blah. My brain, man. There's going to be communication specialists in the games.
Right.
Again, the career paths are kind of an unknown at this point.
That'll be really interesting.
They got the basics out right now, but there's different roles you can do. You have combat, you have transporting, you have exploration. So I'm guessing that is going to be a part of that. Mapping, Pathfinders, that's a role, and then you can map out news.
Is that when you're like transporting politicians and?
Yeah, the touring. So it'd be a lot like Star Trek, where you're hosting diplomats, or a rich person wants to host a party. Yeah,
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's so much variety in terms of what people prefer from their game storylines. Like, if you don't want heavy story and you like more of the strategy, there's something for you. If you want, like a political story, you can do that. If you want something that's a little bit more mundane, you can do that. If you want pure exploration, you can do that. Like, and what I thought would be kind of cool, I don't know if we talked about this yet or not, was the idea of blending different game platforms where, like, let's say every single employee or person working a role in the game can also be a player. So if you have like a restaurant or something, they could do like a mobile game, Star Citizen Mobile, like Diner Dash type thing. And hear me out, as a player in the game, as a serious player with like the full PC setup, you would have to try to interact with the mobile players in a way that would be seamless. But you would know, like, okay, if that's a janitor, that's somebody playing the mobile version of the game. Or maybe you have like a mobile version and a PC version where you can do some maintenance stuff on your downtime on your phone.
Yeah, I do know some games have some
They've
aspect
tried,
of
yeah.
that. They have a mobile thing, so you can, like, with Destiny, you can like move around your gear or something like that from your vault or whatever. So there's some interaction with the game that,
Or like your map is on your phone.
yeah, maybe.
I think there was a Zelda game that did that.
Yeah, there could be like little tiny mini games that could not majorly affect, but at least minorly affect your gameplay. You know, maybe you want to do a little maintenance on the ship or something, or that's cool. I mean, think about that.
I think I'm trying to follow it through to like the most extreme possibility where this becomes a gaming universe that other games are connected to and linked to.
Ooh, so like an API is the game. Star
or
Citizen is the game, but then so many different external things can interact with
like it's a universe and it's all connected.
Star Citizen, the platform,
Yeah.
not just the game.
Like the future of, you know how Nintendo has the whole Mario, like millions of games that are all connected within that universe. Maybe the future of those gaming universes is that they are a living and breathing dynamic platform where you can go from game to game, kind of like in Wreck-It Ralph, in like the most basic level. Like you're crawling inside of a cord and then you're in another game, but like that was a really cool storyline.
That's I think that is definitely future looking for a game, and I think,
and if anyone who would figure it out, they would be like the next Nintendo. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
That is so, I don't even know how to process that. That's like 20 years down the line. They even came out in
they need to hire
beta. Me. Yeah, I mean, they have like a 3-man lore team.
Yeah.
And all they do is just write about the lore of the game and how things work, which affects, how the shipbuilders build ships. Oh, you can't do that because the lore states this X, Y, Z. That character wouldn't say that because, they're from this planet, which focuses more on, family or something.
That actually transitions me perfectly into our next topic. We have, how much time do we have left? We have a little under 13 minutes.
Trying to get it right to an hour? Is that
well, I mean, we packed a lot into this episode, which I think, yay, go us. But I still want to talk about this because I think it relates to a lot of what we've talked about.
Sure.
So I've always been curious about the shipping industry in the real world, and the parallels between the real world shipping industry and the sci-fi interpretation of shipping. I think this started off when I started watching Firefly, and they do a lot of that like courier type stuff. That's kind of their job, is to go from place to place and make deliveries and deal with the purchasing and the black market aspect and kind of the social situations that pop up because of that. So I went online very, very briefly before this, and I looked up the shipping industry because I know nothing about the modern shipping industry.
Google shipping industry. Ooh, thank you, Wikipedia.
Basically, I started from scratch, and we live in a port town. So driving to work back and forth, I see these big ships coming in and doing something mysterious and then going back out. And that was the extent of my experience with what the shipping industry is. So the first thing that popped up when I was looking this up, the first thing that intrigued me was a 2013 article.
Is this just for the shipping industry on water?
Yes.
Okay.
Primarily that. Because that's what I know the least about. And ironically, that's what all of us know the least about. And I'll get into that. So the first article that popped up for me was in 2013 on SmithsonianMag.com, How the Shipping Industry is the Secret Force Driving the World Economy. And this was 6 years ago. And this article is an interview with an author named Rose George, who spent several weeks on a container ship going almost 10,000 miles from England to Singapore.
Huh.
And the purpose of that was for her to learn more about the shipping industry and answer some of those questions that like regular landlubbers don't know anything about. And she turned this into a book called 90% of Everything, which I just purchased on my Kindle so that I can read it, because she is, from the little bit that I've read, she's exactly like me. She was fascinated with the shipping industry. She didn't know anything about it. And then she went on this ship, and basically it was a big romantic thing for her. Like, she talks a lot about how she saw the romance of being out in the middle of nowhere and seeing nothing but sea, and being like in a ship that's cutting through, and having that really singular view of the moon. And so she would try to entice conversations about that out of the people who worked on this ship.
I mean, that's exactly what we're doing with this game, because a big part of this game is the shipping industry.
Yeah.
And, that romantic aspect of,
like, we see it as an exploration, which is like such a white collar way of looking at it, because in reality, these guys are just like, I'm just making a paycheck. So I downloaded her book. I haven't read it yet. And I read this article, and it led me to a couple of different places, and I decided to do kind of like things that are surprising about the shipping industry. So I'm going to quiz you a little bit on it.
All right.
Now, you already forgot the title of the book she wrote, right?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. What % of everything that we transport still goes by ship? Not in the air, not on trucks, not on trains. What % of our transport is on maritime ships?
Like all our consumer goods, or like
everything?
Shipping of everything? Well, we heavily import stuff to America. Is it just the United States?
The whole world.
The whole world. Oh, man. This is like impossible to figure. I'm going to say 47%.
90.
Holy
90% of everything is transported by sea. Nope.
I mean, like Europe, they have that whole, the trains and freight trains.
Still a fraction of what goes by sea.
The United States has a huge trucking industry.
Yep. But if you think about it, a ship can be a heck of a lot bigger than a truck.
Yeah, I mean, they're way more economical than trucks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trucks are good, trains are better, and then shipping container ships or large ships, they're the best.
All they require in terms of infrastructure is the ship and the port. They don't require roads.
Well, there's all the port fees and.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll get into that. So, knowing that 90% of everything still travels as it did almost 500 years ago by ship, how many working shipping ships, for lack of a better term, do you think there are on the water right now?
Working shipping ships.
I'm talking just big ass container ships.
Oh, just the big ass
on the ocean. I'm not counting river travel. I don't think.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's the ones in Lake Michigan that you were referring to earlier.
Yeah.
Are we counting those?
I don't think so.
Well, let's just say the ocean.
It's a vague number.
All right. How many now?
Ships?
1,700.
100,000.
Oh my God.
Yep.
The big ones? Just big ones.
I don't know, actually. I got to look back into that. That's a really interesting question. Out of those 100,000, how many sink per week?
What? Sink?
Sink.
I don't know. They shouldn't be sinking.
2.
2 a week?
2 a week. And not only are they sinking, they're being abandoned by their crew. Because certain ships will run out of money, or they will be mismanaged, and they will be abandoned by the crew. So there's ships that are just floating out there. As far as I know. They're not going to
be floating for too long.
Right? Oh my God.
Or maybe, they abandoned them because the engine died. They're like, well, we're done.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. The thing that I ended up reading the most about, which would surprise me,
out in the middle of nowhere.
Crewing ships is incredibly different from any other trade. that we have currently. It's so old fashioned. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But there's something that happened in 2013 that really changed a lot of this. And I have to read into it more. But basically, until 2013, there wasn't a conglomerate governance of international shipping. Everybody kind of ran on their own rules. And what happened is that it became a lot cheaper to fly your ship under another flag's country that has fewer restrictions. So,
yeah, I've seen that done in a couple of movies.
Yeah. So, the difference between operating costs on a U.S. ship versus a non-U.S. ship can be between $1 and $2 million.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money. So people will purposefully register their ship as a Panamanian ship or a Liberian ship so that they are subject to Panama and Liberia's labor laws. Yes, and license fees and all that stuff. So what happened is that in 2006, they started developing this like UN of shipping, basically, where 88 different countries decided on what's called the Maritime Labor Convention. And then that wasn't fully implemented until 2013. So basic things like...
but I mean, the countries had to sign up for that. I mean, you could have Panama that says, nope.
I mean, there are countries that say no, but
would they
because so many other countries are on board, it becomes more expensive to not follow the rules. So basically it touches everything from like, you have to pay your sailors once a month. They are required to have downtime now. It's basically like a giant union for sailors, which apparently they desperately needed. And that has caused a lot more discussion about workers' rights on ships. And 2 weeks ago...
Getting really excited.
Yeah, I know. I'm so into this stuff. But like even just recently, I just Googled, what's gone on since the Maritime Labor Convention was put into place. And like 3 weeks ago, there's discussion started about the issue of suicide, of sailor suicide, because the conditions are so bleak and because it's very isolating and because it's very dangerous and you spend not that much time with your family. The conversation, the discourse surrounding the shipping industry right now is how can we prevent suicide among sailors? Because 6% of deaths of sailors are suicides, which when you consider the sailors in the shipping industry that's like one of the most dangerous jobs you can have.
Right.
And suicide is 6%.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you don't even think about that.
Yeah.
Like, as the whole, I mean, you're just thinking about the conditions in our country, but once you're out in international seas and you're basically your own little country for however long, between different countries, you're trapped with that same crew. You got no real good communication.
Which brings me to my last trivia point.
Ooh.
What is the number one thing that workers on board ships seek on land when they have shore leave?
Sex.
Oh my gosh. Inappropriate. This is a family podcast.
Is it? What?
No, it is definitely not a family.
I think I swore once already.
It's not sex.
One thing they seek. I mean, there's so many movies that they just go to bars and get wasted. I would say family or connections, perhaps.
You're
something.
So close.
Okay. What is it?
Internet access.
Huh.
They don't have internet on the ships.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at before. You don't have communication. It's just through satellite, and that's probably extremely expensive.
They get off the ship to find free Wi-Fi. They Skype with their family. They transport money to their families, and then they get back on the ship.
Wow.
They don't even go into town because they're so worried about being late. That's one of the things that I think has created this culture of like overworking and not being able to connect with the real world and not being able to be a whole person because you are kind of a cog in this giant machine.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do we have enough time to talk about one more thing? No, but
You have 14 seconds. Tease it. We'll talk about it next week.
yeah, I it's kind of another passion of mine is space travel. Weird how that is. But like our current state of space travel, SpaceX, and all the different space flight. We have NASA, which is a government run thing, and then SpaceX is privately owned. All these cool new things coming out of in the space industry, and SpaceX is also doing has a sub company called Starlink. Did I mention the first episode? I don't remember.
No, but we did talk about it earlier.
Yeah, and Starlink, they're planning to get, satellites.
We
tens
talked
of
about
thousands.
this in Mexico.
Did we?
Yeah.
Be-
when you were on the
Oh,
hammock.
yeah. So like you can tens of thousands of little satellites all orbiting low orbit Earth.
Yeah.
So you can basically get pretty decent high speed internet.
Okay. Next episode.
That's going to be like,
dude.
That would be, for that scenario, that would solve
right?
so many problems.
Next episode, we need to talk about sci-fi interpretations of what the future of the internet is going to be like. And we can talk about SpaceX Starlink or whatever it's called.
Starlink. Yeah, it's so cool. It makes me want to, because, a big reason why I don't like living in the country is the internet just sucks. So like we could buy our own boat. We could go out in the middle of nowhere, but we could still play Star Citizen and other online games and stuff in the middle of nowhere.
You think when we're out in the middle of nowhere on a boat, we're going to need that stimulation of
Yes, there's going to be nothing. It's just going to be a giant blue sea of nothing. We're going to be pretty bored. I don't know.
I think our entire personalities would change. We would become like one with
Beach
nature.
bums.
Like I'm just gonna look at the sun for an hour, like that type of thing.
I don't think so.
All right, well that kind of jumps us off right away into what we can talk about next week, and we'll probably segment it out with something else too, just so we're not ranting about the same thing for the whole hour. But yeah, this was really fun. I think we got deep into a lot of things.
Hopefully, you guys weren't too bored. We're still trying to come up with topics in the first half. I don't know.
I think that was fascinating. Good job, us.
Good job, us. Yay, we did. We did a thing.
Okay. But yeah, like you can see how Star Citizen kind of connects to everything. So we're still going to use that as the core for how we're imagining things, because it's a future game, a current and future game. So I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with Star Citizen next week, especially as more Star Citizen news comes out.
Yeah, hopefully we get some followers and we can get some feedback from people, seeing what they want.
Yeah.
What they're most interesting, what we're talking about, and we can maybe focus more on certain subjects or certain
because we don't really we listen to a couple of podcasts each. We don't really listen to other nerdy podcasts. So if you think that there's a blank spot in that genre and there's something that people don't talk about, we'd be happy to explore that. Not that we want to do everything completely differently from everybody else, but I think everyone's perspective is valuable in
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
But yeah, otherwise, thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.